Toy train sets were about as ubiquitous as a toy as they come. Since the introduction of the railways in the early 19th century, toy manufacturers have been making toy trains and toy train sets. These vary from the very basic, such as Brio, to the ultra-detailed and very realistic Hornby railway system. There's no getting around it. Kids absolutely love toy trains, and will continue to do so.
Train sets, however, are quite complex. Track has to be laid just right. Tight corners will cause trains to derail. The connections between track can be particularly fiddly for young hands. Detailed sets can be fragile. The way children play and the way adult collectors play are completely different. Whereas adults will want to realistically replicate line layouts and operations such as goodyards and sidings, children just want to see trains moving around at speed.
Japanese company TOMY realised this, and what they came up with was the fantastic TOMY Train series, a train set that children could actually play and interact with.
Looking at the old box here, you can see that they went all out to send this message: the first train for little hands. Bright bold primary colours are used for most of the pieces, and the box displays all the aspects of the set that the child can interact with: point systems, display boards, level crossings, train wash. There was a lot to entertain a kid here. The box windows show the train clearly and the figures all happy and smiling. More on both of these soon. Going back to 1959, TOMY invented the play rail track, a plastic rail system for their then hand-operated train sets. These would be replaced with battery-operated trains in 1961. The design of the track was so good that it's barely changed to present day. Similar to Brio and the tabs on a jigsaw, the track pieces have a simple connection: just push one piece of track down onto another. Making this as easy as possible was a genius move in my opinion. Didn't you hate having to have your dad help out setting something up as a kid? I know I did. It took away the experience from me. I wanted to set things up my way, having to deal with wires and plugs, fiddly connections. It was never fun. The box comes with a suggested layout, but you're really able to flex your creativity here to build whatever track you like. The pieces allow for this, and setting up a custom layout is very easy. Let's examine the engines and other vehicles. With this TOMY Train 4 set, the train is made to look like the British Intercity 125 train. In fact, the box says on the back, Intercity train. A number of trains featured in the line were based on real locomotives. Santa Fe, Amtrak, and the Disneyland Express? Okay, that's a stretch, but TOMY knew that children would want steam engines too. They all have this almost chibi style distortion of their proportions, which personally I really like. The trains are powered by a single AA battery. This is underneath the train shell, which just clips into place. There's a little lever on the rear of the train that switches it on and off, big enough and noticeable for small children. A neat feature to the engines is this pin on the underside. Certain track segments can be elevated to activate this pin. It shifts the gears in the train to reverse. Simple but clever. The rear wheels have these rubber tyres for traction, and the trains don't just have to be used on the track, you can set them going across the floor. The rear wheels also have cog teeth to them. This helps with them climbing inclines to bridges. Again, another really nice thought out idea. In fact, coming back to the track, there's a number of ingenious innovations to manipulate the engine whilst it's running. These brake points simply lift the engine up, so its wheels spin in the air, if you want to simulate the train stopping at a station or for a points change. Speaking of points, changing them couldn't be simpler. Just move the little red portion to change the direction. Included with this set is the automatic changer. As the train passes, this red tab is caught by the underside of the engine and changes the points. This is entirely optional. You're able to change the points to whichever position you like, but how innovative to create a way that does it automatically without batteries. All the trains and carriages have magnetic couplers. TOMY clearly went out their way to make this as easy as possible for children. All the carriages have this bare black base to them, and the body clips in place. The majority of coaches will have the roof open to allow passengers to be easily put inside to ride. This storage container carriage is a little different from the others. It has a magnet in the top of the lid and can be used in conjunction with the dockyard crane, another really well designed toy. No batteries here again. The winch mechanism is these two buttons, up and down. You press the button and bit by bit the winch is lowered. When down on the container, the magnets connect and you can unload cargo from the trains. Missing here sadly is an open yellow hopper. It had wooden logs that you could use the crane with. The logs would click into the winch. Included with this set is the shuttle bus for the main station, which, again, isn't battery powered. Instead, it has a simple spring-driven motor. You push down on the driver, and letting go sends the bus on its way. The level crossing is weighted so that the barriers are raised when the train isn't passing. When the train approaches, the weight of the carriage causes the blue slopes to push in and the barriers to fall. A simple mechanism, but it adds a nice sense of realism. Another thing that adds a nice sense of realism to the toy is the train wash, an aspect of railways no one really gives much thought to. The foam brushes turn as the engine goes through. It has one of the direction switches built into it, so you can have your engine going back and forth if it's particularly dirty, like most British trains are. As mentioned before, the trains have the ability to climb inclines, and these sloped track segments have small teeth along the inner lip to help the train drive itself up. From there, you can use standard track to create your bridges, using these red supports that the track simply rests on. The yellow bridge segments push into place on these studs on the top of the supports. The studs are quite prevalent on the TOMY Train series, and they're used for holding figures in place and also assembling certain structures. If you're curious, yes, they absolutely support Lego bricks and figures, and I can't think this was purely coincidental. Whatever the case may be, it's nice to have the option there of having Lego minifigs riding around the trains and on the stations. To me, Lego figures are a bit more in scale with the trains, but that's not discounting the TOMY figures. The figures are simple in the design, but have a wonderful charm to them. All of them have the same face, it's just body colours and hair that change them. These feel solid and really robust, a good thing as they would see a lot of play. Some of the figures have small magnets fitted to their feet. More about that shortly. TOMY had a number of accessory packs and extensions for their sets. This traffic light clicks into one of the stop-start segments of the track, and the light will change accordingly. It's powered by 2 AA batteries and surprisingly still works. This isn't an LED, it's a tiny bulb that slides between the 2 coloured windows. More impressive is this talking train station. The voice for this thing is deeply ingrained on my mind. This thing has been lurking in my attic for 20 plus years and I still know exactly how it's going to sound. Maybe the battery is a little flat. This sounds slow? Wrong. This little white slider in the battery compartment allows you to change the speed and pitch. What a great idea! I love the fact that TOMY went as far to make a station that replicates station announcements.
The train is now leaving the station.
The branch stations that come with the set are a simple one piece, which you can attach seats, signs, barriers to make them look a bit more interesting, but the transport terminal has some really wonderful play features. As mentioned before, the feet of the figures have small magnets. If you position them on this platform, you'll feel the magnet pull the figure into place. Manipulating these levers on the front cause the figures to move around the platform on their own, seemingly as if by magic. The escalator at the side is also magnetically operated. It will latch and stay in place, but placing a figure on it magnetically releases the latch and the escalator rises up. On the station is a destination board. Love the fact that it's got Manchester in particular, but rather fantastic that it's got all British destinations. Makes me wonder if different countries got different places. On the rear to this little display, pull the lever, a bell rings, and the time rotates round to the next train arrival. Such things really bring these sets to life. I'd be lying if I said I brought this down from the attic and everything worked perfectly. To be honest, of all the things that I've brought down and inspected so far, this is the toy that's required the most amount of attention. None of the engines were working, and the talking train station had gone quiet. First, the engines. Putting fresh batteries into them did nothing, so I decided to take them apart. Testing the motor on its own revealed that amazingly, it was still working. The cogs in both engines though were worn, and in places, had cracks that were causing the cog to slip rather than turn on the spindles. A small touch of superglue fixed this. I then proceeded to put a small dab of engine oil into this small slot here to keep the motor running happy. Greasing the cogs also helped with them turning and performing correctly, though this red train is still a lot noisier than the Intercity. The rubber tyres that the trains used for grip on the tracks had perished too, and were a hard ring of rubber that was slipping around the wheel and giving absolutely no traction. Fortunately, TOMY still make replacements. I carefully peeled off the old and fitted the replacements. Good as new. The talking station ended up being the biggest surprise. I felt certain that it would have a small circuit inside with the sounds programmed on, and the board would need some cleaning and attention. What I found inside was really rather amazing. It's a small record player, or more accurately, a gramophone player. Pressing the button moves the stylus to the intended track on the record. I'm not sure how exactly this works, but this cone acts as the amplifier for the sound. I'd always wondered why it sounded slightly crackly. I figured a poor speaker. Why it had stopped working was a very simple fix. The belt from the motor to the disc had simply slipped off. I put this back on, fixed it all back together, and voila! I'm simply amazed by the ingenuity of this toy. Aforementioned, this is the fourth set that Tomy came out with, but there was a number of sets before and after. It wasn't soon after the introduction of Thomas the Tank Engine onto our TV screens that Tomy started to put out Thomas themed sets. I was a massive fan of Thomas as a kid. I had books, die-cast vehicles, VHS tapes, bedspread, even wallpaper, but I never owned any of these sets. For some reason, they passed me by. Tomy stopped production of the train system in 1998, but reworked the toy into the Tomy World series, which incorporated cars as well as trains. This line is still going very strong, with the Thomas line being a popular seller as well as the Chuggington series too. The Playrail system is still being used for the track and amazingly is compatible with old track. New sets have light blue for the trains and grey for the cars and trucks. The trains differ slightly. The couplers are no longer magnetic. They have this hook and loop system which, if I'm honest, isn't as easy on small hands. The drive wheels for the engines have lost the cogs too, so new trains won't work on the old slope inclines, but old trains will work on the new track. Fantastic! On the box of my set is clearly boasted the What Toy Award winners badge, 88 to 89, and it's rightly deserved. These are fantastic toys. They're charming, they're engaging for young children, they're brightly coloured, easy to set up, easy to run, and above everything else, they're hugely entertaining. I remember taking my sets to my nan's house for the 6 weeks holiday and setting them up on our living room carpet. The Christmas I got these, I set up a huge layout in the living room. These hold such warm childhood memories for me. Tomy Train and Tomy World have a surprisingly large community for them, blueplastictrack.com being the centre hub for the following. These are a great introduction to train sets for young children. Tomy World sets can still be found in toy shops, but if you're after a vintage set like this, eBay and second-hand sites are probably your best option. Just be prepared to do some repairs. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.